What's up everybody, it's Joe from JLW Games, coming at you with another cool video back in Planet Coaster in Westwood, of course, and today we're going to be working on the queue line of this awesome ride. So when we left off, we created this amazing RMC, which I'm actually very proud of. It's probably the most proud RMC that I've ever built, and we're going to be working on a lot of the queue line and kind of the queue line scenery and a lot of the scenery around the ride as well. So this is going to be a very interesting queue line itself because it's going to have like 3 levels of zigzags, and since it's on like this huge hill, it was kind of actually very difficult to navigate around and figure out how it was actually going to work properly, but I got it to work in a way I think it's going to be really cool. And I want to make sure I created like kind of like a path section down there to kind of get ready to connect these pathways or connect the queue line and the exit path to that section. So that's how it's going to work, and if I don't hit my mic, this will be very cool. So we're going to be working on a lot of scenery around the ride a little bit. We're not going to do all of it, just a little bit, bits and pieces here and there, and we're also going to be working on a lot of scenery in the queue line to make sure that the scenery line is actually very, very themed up and will attract a lot of guests. So I kind of almost came up with a storyline for this ride of how it's going to work and kind of a theme and storyline to it. Now, the name of the ride that I have came up with, you guys had some pretty good suggestions, and I don't believe this came from anyone but me, so the name that I came up with was actually Iron Ghost. A lot of people are saying like Ghost Rider or Ghost Chaser and stuff like that. I'm kind of in disagreement with that. I think Ghost Rider is something I don't want to do because it's overused, and Ghost Chaser just kind of, you know, it doesn't sound unique enough, and the Iron Ghost just sounds something, you know, it's an RMC coaster, so you're going to have like the, you know, the iron track and stuff like that, or it's actually technically steel, but this is actually a wooden coaster anyways, so it does kind of, it's kind of awkward, but with that name, I decided to come up with a storyline for that. So the Iron Ghost kind of makes sense because this is actually going to be based off of a ghost of someone who has passed away in the past from who lived in Westwood, because before it was a ghost town, it was actually a nice place to live. So this section of the park, so it was actually a nice section to live for this place in Westwood, and eventually it became a ghost town after a lot of deaths occurred, and it became more of a ghost town, and everyone kind of abandoned the area. And one notable story was the Iron Ghost story. Now this guy is one of the guys that, or this is actually a person that actually died, or actually passed away, died while he was living in this area, and he was actually a miner. He would actually travel, his job was mining and everything like that, and he had an obsession with iron and stuff like that. So he would mine iron a lot for it, and he was a very productive worker for the city of Westwood, and they noted that. And then it's a complete mystery of how he passed away, but he passed away somehow in the mine, and some people find his spirit because if there is actually iron that has been laying around, this is actually the creepy part, or the ghostly part comes in. People will actually mine the iron, and if they some people have actually taken their eye off the iron that they just mined, and it will actually disappear. So a lot of people think it was the ghost of this man that died, who was actually not obsessed with iron, but like he was hard at work and loved or pretty much loved iron, and they started calling this the Iron Ghost. And he would appear a lot in the city, or in the ghost town of Westwood, which is now known as the ghost town, and it wasn't always, with the storyline, it wasn't always known as the ghost town, but now it is currently. And one of the most scariest stories that people found was the Iron Ghost, and that's what they called him. So that's kind of what this ride is based around. I thought it was a really neat storyline. There's a little details in there that can be added to the storyline. It's kind of an interesting storyline I thought I came up with, and I thought it was kind of really neat and unique, something that you haven't heard before, and you know, that kind of makes sense in this theme. So as you can see, what I've been working on is actually the 3 levels of queue line, as I'm going to call it. The 3 levels of queue line, which is zigzags around going upwards, and every so often you have to go upstairs to the next level. And finally, once you get to the final level, you'll finally get to the station, and we're going to be theming this area up a lot with a lot of like ghostly kind of buildings and stuff around this section, so people have something to look at and love the theming around the queue line. It's gonna definitely have no problems getting 100% queue theming in this ride, and I like really won't. So I decided to not have any covers over this queue line. There's not gonna be an indoor part. I might make one indoor, I'm not entirely sure yet, but it's gonna be surrounded kind of like these buildings, ghost town buildings that are gonna be really neat, and I am very excited of how it's gonna turn out, and I hope a lot of guests embrace this coaster like it's the greatest coaster in the park, and because it most likely will be the greatest coaster in the park, providing the fact that the B&M is not better. So you can't really pass up RMC. RMC is a hard competition for B&M for them to be the better ride. So anyways, I'm gonna try and do my best to make a really amazing B&M, but that will be in the Invention Company section of the park, which will actually be after the ghost town is complete. So hopefully we'll get back to the dark ride as well soon, but I really was excited for this ghost town and had to get into this section of the park, because this ride is going to be iconic, and it's going to be one of the biggest main attractions in the park, and that is no joke. So as for other rides that are going to be going into the park, you're going to be seeing the B&M and possibly a kiddie coaster. I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be much more than that for the debut of this park. Again, we have plenty of space to work with. We're going to be adding rides throughout the seasons of this park. So my goal is to have this park open by next month in March. If that doesn't happen, we're going to be looking more at maybe an April or May opening date, because some parks don't actually open till around that time, because there's very few that actually do open in March for the season. So anyways, I actually ended up stop recording right here and actually made a cut to the next half of the video, because I actually had to go do something real quick in that manner, and I had to come back to the game, so there's kind of a little bit of cut there. Nothing was actually added or anything, so it was just a cut in the video. So I decided to make the wooden supports for the exit path and also the queue line, of course. They looked pretty neat and actually worked out pretty well. So I actually like the look of the wooden supports for this kind of ghost town, and actually looks very nice. So I wanted to make sure there's cover over the exit pathway as well, and to put like the roof on there, the rustic roof, kind of like the metal rustic roof that is in the game, kind of like what we used for the River Rapids ride. It's going to be a very similar exit pathway to that. So I really liked that this coaster uses the terrain a lot, and that was my main focus with this coaster. So I knew I was going to have some difficulties with that, and then the game started completely lagging, probably because there was so much to render on the screen, and I'd been running the game for many hours at that point without doing anything. I just kind of wanted to look at what I did for the River Rapids ride and make this kind of similar, except the descending parts on the stairs are actually going to have cover as well, which is a nice little touch to it at the same time. So I wanted to go into some extra detailing into this, and I decided to actually make some footers for the structure that holds up the exit queue line, or the exit path. Exit queue line, there's no such thing. But I decided to make some footers to put for the wooden supports, kind of like you would actually see in a wooden coaster or something like that, just to give it a little more realism. And I do this by using the actual shapes that is under the scenery, which actually worked out very nicely, and it's just a little extra layer of detail, you know, that actually makes it look quite nice. And I wanted to put like this steel beam over the top of where this is, where it's under supported. That way it has a little bit more supporting, and it actually would look like that in real life, most likely. So again, I get to these little supports that go into the wooden supports for the exit pathway, and they actually turn out really cool. They look like little coaster supports and little supports for this wood, and I actually was very excited excited for this little minor detail. It's a little details that actually can count and make your park look really amazing. So yeah, I might add some details like this, maybe to like the same thing to the River Rapids ride, which also has these kind of like a very similar thing, and actually might add some little footers to that. I love using these shapes because I love using them as like little footers for this, and it's actually really neat how they work. And I was like, well, if I'm going to add it to those, I have to add it to these over here as well. I didn't do the inside to kind of save on rendering and stuff like that, so I just did kind of the ones that you could see the most. I thought it would be the best option to do. Again, we're working with some very uneven ground here, so it's very kind of like a very difficult option, or a very difficult work site as it would be in real life. So it's actually a very interesting concept to have, you know, to work with the terrain, and I love working with terrain. I think it gives some really cool rides, especially with terrain coasters. Terrain coasters are just awesome, and everything like that. So actually, like constructing man-made, you know, pathways above, you know, with using the terrain and stuff, it's just a lot of fun, and it makes it look really cool. So there's a lot of details that are obviously going to be added to this queue line that are not done yet. So I just love looking at the coaster from the pathway. It looks really cool. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually create like a building next to this. And I'm going to do this for quite a few of the bit of the queue line to keep guests a little bit entertained while they are waiting in line, obviously, because they're going to probably be waiting for quite a long time. So I wanted to create like some buildings that kind of looked very disfigured and kind of ghostly in a way. So you're going to see like crooked windows, doors, and stuff like that. Just a lot of different scenery items that are going to make this look cool, like a saloon sign that's crooked and stuff like that. It's just going to add to kind of like the ghost town effect to it, that, you know, this place is in bad shape, and a lot of guests, not a lot of people come around these parts very often, and Westwood has invited you kind of to explore this section of this town, to try and take it back for the city of Westwood, which you actually don't get to be very successful with. So as you can see, this is going to be a very wonky building, and it's going to have that effect to kind of make it look a little bit more scary and ghostly in a way, because it is a ghost town. And I wanted to add a lot of props around the area and just try to get make sure that the queue line scenery rating was top notch. That is very important for me in this in this park, is to make sure all the scenery rating for the queue line is top notch. And I think I got it up to the 80s after doing this, so there's a lot more to do. And I actually added some music to it as well, because I thought it would be cool to have some music in the queue line for this section, and just to keep more guests entertained again, with kind of like a ghostly kind of music, kind of eerie, and which you're not going to be able to hear obviously here, but I might put it throughout the queue line as well. It will help with scenery theming as well throughout the queue line. It's just gonna it always boosts a lot when you have music in the area, and it's actually really neat. I'm very excited, like, for this section of the park. It's gonna have a lot of rides. Like, this is the main attraction for the ghost town, but again, throughout the seasons and years, we're gonna be adding different attractions and rides, especially when we get more updates with Planet Coaster itself. So that will actually be something to know. Now, also, a big thing is importing is lighting. So I make sure that there's plenty of lights and lighting around this section, so when you do ride these rides at night, you'll be able to see, and it's going to actually have a different experience if you were to be in the queue line and ride the rides at night. It's actually going to be a huge difference, because I plan on this park to be open late at night. I think that's going to be something that is going to draw guests, of course, to this park, because there's gonna be the option to ride the rides at night, and that's always terrifying and kind of a little bit more thrilling sometimes when you can't see what's going on. And it's really cool, and you get to see the lights as well, which is actually a really neat addition as well. So anyways, there's just a little bit more I do here, which a little bit of scenery items around the queue line, foliage and rocks, and just kind of like natural scenery that goes right here, because I'm going to be adding bits and pieces of this throughout the coaster as well, to make sure that the scenery around the coaster is very nice at the same time. So you're looking at the Iron Ghost coaster, which is actually going to be a really cool I think the theme's pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud of what I came up with. So let me guys know in the comments what you think about that. And that's about it for this episode. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more Planet Coaster content like this. And I hope you guys have enjoyed, and make sure you guys have a great day and an even cooler tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.